Alright, what up, y'all? We're back. Zach and Josh just left because it's getting pretty late. But me and David are still here to talk about. Really, though, these are kind of like me and you bands. Like, these are two bands that you and I follow pretty hardcore. But coming up, right now we've got the review for the newest Haken album. And coming up after this is the review for the newest Avatar album. And, you know, man, Haken, you introduced me to Haken. In fact, I think this might be the first time we ever reviewed a Haken album, too. Because I didn't touch on Virus or Vector when it came out. I do remember I put Affinity as one of my favorite albums of 2016.
I think we did talk about Affinity, though.
I don't remember.
It's been so long. We did talk about... No, we didn't talk about it. We mentioned it, or I mentioned it in the top 10s at one time, I think.
So, Virus, their newest album, is
Bright yellow.
somehow connected to
Vector.
their previous album. And it also has connections to some of their best work, like The Cockroach King, for instance. Now, what really drew me to Haken is the fact that they are, in the early days at least, they embraced the overall cheesiness of the prog genre, because prog music can get really cheesy, and I've always loved prog music because it had some cheesiness to it. Because when you listen to Aquarius, man, is there some cheesy sounding shit up in there. But man, they hit all the stuff I like. The real melodic, very upbeat melodic, very powerful and epic. Whereas they always felt to me like better than Dream Theater on good Dream Theater days. Because Dream Theater does the same thing. Like, the only Dream Theater albums I absolutely love are Metropolis 2, 6 Degrees of Turbulence or whatever, and The Astonishing. And when they try to be more metal, it doesn't work for me. James LaBrie's voice to me is not that great on metal music, but it's great on prog music, because the dude's got a fascinating voice. And kind of the same thing with this guy. I like his voice better when they embrace the cheesiness as opposed to be a little more metal. Aquarius, phenomenal album all the way through. Visions, I don't feel Visions all that much. I love the Visions track, the 20-minute fucking opus on that motherfucker. Love that. But then The Mountain is phenomenal. The Mountain,
That's a masterpiece right there.
yeah, The Mountain fucking feels like the other side of prog, where it's more on the jazzy spectrum, and it sounds more like a King Crimson or a Gentle Giant kind of prog album, as opposed to what Dream Theater or Fate's Warning would kind of be. And then they did Affinity, which is mind-blowing because it totally embraces cheesiness. It is a tribute to the 80s style of prog, and they pull it off. They make the cheesy 80s style prog sound fantastic. And man, it's such a great album. But sadly, like, that's the last album of theirs that I absolutely love. Vector tried to be a little too metal. There's some great moments on there.
Yeah.
But
I liked Puzzle Box. That was a really good song.
like, there's some cool shit on there, but right now I can't remember a single melody. And I was a little bit disappointed with it. So, earlier this year, they dropped, was the first single, Prosthetic?
Yeah. That's a banger right there.
It's a banger, but I'm still not all into it. There's parts that I love, like the whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, like there's parts that I love in it, and then I'm like, oh, it's just
it's a head-banging song.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is a heavy song.
Yeah, it's a cool, heavy song.
And I think with that one, they were just wanting to start off like you turn it on and it starts off like the first 5 seconds, and then it just like this guitar riff that's and you're just like oh okay, and you kind of get hyped up for it a little bit, and it doesn't slow down at all until for the whole song, the rest of the song. I mean, it's pretty high paced.
It's a badass track.
It's fast paced. It's heavy. I enjoyed the song itself, and then further on, it all changes. Because Invasion was like really good, but I think between Invasion and Carousel, he forced it. It sounded like he was forcing the notes, the higher notes this time around. Like he was really flat. Like you could tell, like it was just like this like this flat sound. Obviously it was better tuned, but it was just kind of like he was really forcing to get it out. And I know that he could probably make it, but to me it sounded like that. He was just trying to
Carousel is like the first time on this album where I'm like really digging moments. Where I'm like, that shit was cool.
Musically, it's fucking awesome album.
Yeah, like musically, it's fantastic. That's the thing. Is like even when they're heavier or cheesier, musically they're always going to be great. But to me, the most memorable stuff is either in the cheesiness or in their big sweets, which is why like Division's title track is the only thing I ever really remember on it. But The Strain, I can't remember much, and Canary Yellow, I can't remember much. But I haven't, today was the first time I'd listened to this album since I ordered it about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute. But to me, the best thing this album has to offer is the Messiah Complex, the big, massive suite. Every movement, Ivory Tower, A Glutton for Punishment, Marigold, The Sect, Ectobus.
Nothing bad on it.
Rex, really, or is that Oedipus Rex? No, Ectobus Rex. I can't read right now. Fascinating track all the way through, and then the way it brings in melodies from the Cockroach King. I was like,
yeah, I love it when bands do that, where they kind of bring in
from
an
like
old
3
tune.
albums ago.
Yeah, it was like an old riff, but they know it's their biggest one.
Yeah.
And I love how they kind of swing in that. It's like, hey, remember, we haven't lost this. We're just trying something new. At least that's what it feels like to me, especially with the last 2 albums. It's like they're doing something a little bit different. And I think that, to me, with both of these albums, I love Haken. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands since I heard them out. And I went back in Visions and Aquarius, listened to those. But I don't like, per se, this direction, though, that they're going in. I mean, besides the Complex. Anything else, though, like, it all sounds like Vector to me.
Yeah, it does. It's just,
and it's like a continuation of Vector.
It's just technical, heavy music.
Right, and to me, I enjoy it.
A charm to me. They've lost the charm the past.
If it was any other band that did that, I'd be fine with it because it's a different band. And to me, it's a formula, very formulaic, which I don't like about Haken. Is that, or the one thing I like about them, a lot of their albums, is that they're not formulaic. They're flying all over the place. You have a solo, and then you have like this random breakdown thing, and then it's kind of back into a solo, into a chorus, and they always kind of throw in different parts, and it just blends really well together. But when they start, Vector was like, okay, I agree with you.
Almost predictable.
Right, I agree with you on that. Vector to me was like, hey, let's try to get something a little bit more mainstream, and people won't have to, and then give. So I'm really hoping, this is one thing I'm thinking though, is that they push these 2 albums mainly because they seem like they're a, what do you call it, a double album or whatever. Yeah. And I'm really hoping that the Complex was just the beginning of their next album, which will be just an amazing thing that they would go back to that style of the Mountain and Infinity, which is fucking both of those albums are brilliant in their own ways. And like I miss the instrumentals with the actual like horns and shit. Like that's one thing I loved about the Mountain. They had the horns. I was like, holy shit, because I'm a band nerd. So fucking. I mean that shit was like, it was beautiful though. Like when you have all the kind of emotions for an album, you know it's one of those best. And I didn't get that from this, even though I mean, like I said, the album's amazing, but it's not Haken amazing.
The reason I can keep going back to Aquarius, especially that first track, when you get the long fucking jam, and it starts to sound like Crash Bandicoot, where it's like, and then when it comes back with the she's found her way to the point of no return, it's like, God. I don't know. To me, they are missing some of that epicness for me.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, the last two albums though, like they're not my favorites, but I love them. I mean, I like them.
They're good albums.
They're good albums. They're good music to keep going by.
But they're just good technical heavy albums.
And you're really not gonna skip because you know they're good songs.
Because there's another thing. You know, Zach's a big fan of earlier Between the Buried and Me. A band who's very similar, but like me, my favorite is that Coma Ecliptic because it does all of that with the more clean vocals and the proggy stuff. And you know, I'll always say that I'm not the biggest fan of screaming vocals. Your scream's got to be unique for me to give a shit, and because a scream's a scream. But singing is different, and sometimes. My big question is, why is it that with prog music, now this is prog music of old and prog music today, why is it like the default is the high vocals, the very high register, the Geddy Lee sound, the John Anderson sound, the fucking Dennis D. Young fucking sound, that real high-pitched voice, and the James LaBrie channels, and this guy, I can never remember this guy's name.
I don't remember.
But it's you know, and some of them are better than others, you know. But why is that the default? You know, I don't understand that. But I do like it when you see somebody like James LaBrie. You never believe that guy could sing that way. You know, you're like, that guy looks like a biker bar fucking guy, but he comes out there with these goddamn pipes that are like, whoa.
That's what like Thank You Scientist. You see this balding like nerdy looking dude with glasses who looks like a dad from the suburbs, and then you hear him sing it to, like with the band in this heavy kind of, as the punk rock dude on YouTube said, the Tweedly Diddlies. That's what he calls those bands, like Gavin Dance, and Thank You Scientist. They have the Twiddly Widdlies or something. He's like, I don't really have that, so like it's a disease or something. Like if you catch it, you're gonna like bands like this. But yeah, so. That's the high register though. I don't know. That's
it's like the default. That is the.
I don't know. Opeth. I don't think Opeth does that.
So I don't know very much Opeth, but I do think
they're newer. Like they're probably their third album in. They got really proggy. Like even the singer was like his first two albums. He's like, I never really liked screaming because there are some like it's very like their first two has a real dark like goth death metal kind of black metal style. But they kind of veer off. Like their newest few albums are very prog. Like the last 3 or 4 albums are just very prog. They have a lot. They've been out forever.
Yeah, like that, or mid '90s at least.
Yeah, I think you would like them. I think you would see the growth.
I've always been meaning to check them out. I've always been meaning to check them out.
You probably get their first few albums pretty cheap though.
Hopefully. But I don't know. This one, I mean, I don't feel most of this album. I like it. But I'm never in like a damn. I want to hear some Virus. You know, I'm still. After I listened to this, I went straight back to Aquarius, and straight back to the Mountain.
Oh, I can always go back to Mountain.
And I was like, there's just something they are missing now that has been missing since Vector. And to me, it's the cheesiness. To me, it's the melodies, a thing is it's something I'll always say about Frank Zappa is the fact that that man's music could be incredibly complex, but the melodies are so catchy and memorable that anybody can get into it. And that for me is a lot of that early Haken where like it could be incredibly complex, but at the same time they're earworms. You know, you're still thinking of those melodies once it's over. The last two Haken albums, I can't remember any of it. And the only reason I remember a lot of the Messiah Complex is because of the callbacks to earlier stuff.
Yeah.
And which is cool. I do dig that. But for me, it's like, damn, you know, it sounds about what I expected it to.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard Prosthetic, I was like, that was the first single. I was like, okay, you know, it's cool. It's a real headbanger. You know, I like heavy music. That's great. And then I was like, all right, what's the next one? Then Invasion came out, and I was like, all right, it sounds like like Prosthetic. Okay, I see where they're going now. Like I saw those first two songs, and I was like, okay, there's
like, well, we got 5 songs left.
Yeah, it was a continuation of Vector. I think that's what it felt like. Like it was like maybe they should have put these songs on there as well. And I understand that the concept wasn't right for those songs because what they sang about. A growing virus. I'm Prosthetic. I can't. You know, it's probably what it's about. Name is about. Like you lost. You're just basically replacing something that's not there. In a way, I think that's what Prosthetic is kind of leaning towards. Invasion's obviously a virus invasion. And then Carousel, I liked a lot. But like I said, I felt that his vocals were being forced at that high note, that high strain. Like it sounded like he was just straining that one note and he couldn't go any higher. That's what it felt like to me. And because usually his albums prior to that, they're all really clear. Like he can hit those notes and they didn't sound like he was kind of wavering. So I think maybe he's just out of place or out of practice or something. Or he was really just not hitting it where he wanted it. But that's just me. I mean, thinking that don't remember a lot from the strain.
Yeah, neither do I.
It kind of blends in between Carousel and Canary Yellow, which I dig the fuck out of Canary Yellow. I really like that, and it was a good lead up into Complex. And obviously, Complex is the best thing about the album. It's this fucking the rest of the album. And it's epic, and each thing is like doing its own thing while still sounding like it's one song, and then bringing back the mountain portion of it. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm really hoping that I like I said, I love this album, but it's not going to be my favorites. It's probably it's better than Vector though.
Yeah, it's better than Vector, and you know what really saddens me is the fact that I saw a lot of people, because the way this connects to Vector, a lot of people were saying it made them like Vector better. I didn't experience that. I'm still not a big fan of Vector, and I'm kind of on the pot with this one, you know, and it's like I was telling Zach, I was like, this is not one I could recommend anybody. Like, if you've never heard Haken, this is not the one. This is not the one. I mean,
I think if you like the more simplistic side of prog metal, I think this is a good album.
I mean, if you're a fan of heavy metal, if you're just a fan of like technical metal,
right,
check it out. But if you're a fan of prog, go to Aquarius. Go to the Mountain. I mean,
I started with the Mountain. I'm so glad I did. That's what got me into Haken and just kept me there.
Because I could still go to Aquarius and be like, you know, something about, oh, with all the fishes in the sea, but I still remember all that shit. But these, I'm just like, it just sounds like some technical metal.
Yeah. They haven't hit, this one did
They haven't hit that sweet spot in a couple of years for me.
Yeah, I mean, Affinity was really great, but I think that was two albums ago, so
yeah, that
maybe
was the last great one for me.
Maybe another 2 years they'll go back. Like, I'm really kind of hoping that they go backwards a little bit. I mean, just go back to Affinity style, do something like that again, or do something like. Definitely try to. I would love to hear the Mountain.
One step forward.
Right.
Like they embraced the cheesiness of the 80s on that album, and held that flag high, and it's gone on both
I
of
love
these
the
albums.
endless knot though on that. It's just
Yeah, dude. Fuck.
that bass line is just it's like it just drops to it too.
A lot of there's not a lot of jazzy interludes anymore. It's just a little upsetting because it's like, you can still be prog, you can still be technical. You don't have to just gin it all the time. I mean, you can throw a different genre in between your metal song. I don't know. It's just they aren't hitting that sweet spot anymore. I like the album, but it's not one I'm itching to hear.
So what do you rate it?
I give it a 7. It is slightly above average, especially when it comes to technical metal stuff. Like it's sad when I have to say I like Dream Theater's The Astonishing better than this. I like Between the Buried and Me's Coma Ecliptic better than this. Like those do me right. When this is a band that made me have hope for some prog metal after Between the Buried and Me started doing me wrong with Automata. And so it's like, damn, man, what are y'all doing? I mean, it's good, but I'm not feeling it.
I can say a 7 would be good. I mean, I really want to give it an 8, but I have a few problems with the sameness of it. I think that
Very samey.
it really bugs me. I've lately, the last few years, Travis has seen me, like, I've gotten really into a lot of prog music. And especially the newer style stuff, because I'm a heavy metal guy, so I like the heavier stuff. And a lot of the last 5 to 6 years, a lot of prog's gone to a heavier side. For me, I enjoy it a lot more. And with the Virus, I was kind of like, it's cool, but it's very I was hoping. I always like it better when bands don't sound. The next album sounds different. And this one's kind of like, let's put everything we've done and just shove it into an album. So Vector, they shoved in the first 5 songs, then they took some stuff from The Mountain, some stuff from Affinity, and they kind of didn't mold it right. So, yeah, the album flows really well, but it just, again, it's not one of my favorites, but it's not a bad album. Like, if you should listen to it. And definitely listen to The Mountain and Aquarius. Those are and Affinity, because those are amazing albums.
Those are top 3 Haken for me.
Yeah. So, but yeah, 7 sounds right.
Yeah.
It sounds it's a good spot to. Yeah, I'll listen to it if it comes. I keep my stuff on shuffle, so if it comes on, I'll listen to it. I won't skip it.
True.
But yeah.
So, what did you guys think about the new Haken? Did you love it? Did you hate it? We'll be back with the new Avatar. I actually got to get a refresher on the Avatar real quick. Smoke a cigarette. And